Hey everybody, it's Catroll Hunter here, and we're going to look into a jar of silver treasure. Hi everybody, it's James, and you're watching my channel, Catroll Hunter, and I got a jar of silver that I got from a friend of mine. I can't say I got it from a friend of mine. It still belongs to her. This was handed down to her from her grandparents, and you know, it's every coin collector's dream, I think, to be handed down a coin collection or find a jar of hidden treasure. Well, this was actually a jar of hidden treasure that was found in her family, and then she was handed down this jar of treasure. So MJ, it says right on the jar, this is hers, and she was really gracious enough to let me take you on a little bit of a journey looking through what we got here. Looking closely, it's hard to see through the glass, but you can see some laureate portraits. There's some older coins in there. I thought I spied a George VI. There's some newer Tierra portrait, but it looks to be all silver. We're going to take a look and see what we got in here. Maybe we'll find some rare and valuable stuff. MJ is not a coin collector. She's not a coin roll hunter. She doesn't know what's in here, if there's anything particularly valuable. It might all be common stuff, but you know what? It's a jar of silver, and that's pretty cool. So we're going to find out if there's anything that she should know about that might be interesting or valuable for more than just the silver content. This could just be regular circulated older coins, kind of like an old piggy bank. But we're going to get in here. I'll dump them out and we'll see what we got. Okay, I got the lid off. I can see one that doesn't have the look of silver, so it might be something different, but for the most part, this looks all pretty silvery. Let's go ahead and... Oh, that's definitely the sound of silver. And look at that. I see an oldie. That's really cool. Let's see. Well, let's just take a quick peek while we're here. That is really awesome. A 1919, and it's got lots of detail. That's in really great shape. That's really cool. And we can see a wide variety, some older and newer silver stuff. I don't see anything else quite as old. There's a King George VI I can see there. Let's just separate these out. Oh, and I see there's our one that wasn't silver, 1973 RCMP commemorative. Why don't we separate these out by denomination, stack them up, see what we've got, see if we've got any key dates, anything really interesting in here. Well, before we stack them up, I spread them out here. We can see a few things that aren't silver. There's our 1973 RCMP. We saw that. We'll check that to see if that is the large bust. Wouldn't that be incredible? And there's a few things here, some dimes, or so, there's some nickels. A 1964, no extra water line there. Another 1964, no extra water line. And it looks like we've got a 1968, and I'll put the magnet to it, but that looks like it's going to be nickel. All right, well, we started by separating out all of the quarters, and they're all in pretty much circulated condition. There's a whole lot in the 60s. We'll start there, I guess. There's a big stack of 1968. These are going to be 50% silver. And next to that, we've got a silver 1967 commemorative with the Bobcat. That could be 50% or 80%. And then we got 66, 65, quite a stack of 1964 is a very common year. 63, 2, 1, 1960. In the 50s, we got a bunch of 1953s here. Interestingly, nothing earlier than that. No King Georges in the 50s. We'd have no 54s, but we got 55, 56, 57, 58, 59. In the 40s, only one sole King George VI, and that's a 1941. Pretty circulated. And then we have a couple of earlier ones. We have a 38 and a 39, and that 39 is in better condition than we would normally see. But the find of the quarters is this guy right here. So we had a George V we saw earlier in the dimes, and here's a George V we see in the quarters. Pretty slick. If I flip it over, it's dateless. This is really common for these older Canadian quarters where it says cents in Canada and the date are pretty much all worn right off. And I put it under the scope to see if we could see a date, and I couldn't. And I guess just for the sake of showing you that, I'll throw it under here. We'll put it up on the big screen so we can see 25, but we can't see anything else. And that date would appear right about here above the bow there, and we don't see anything. But that is an 80% silver Canadian quarter with George V on it. That's a pretty cool find for sure. Next, we're going to get into the dimes. We'll see if we can find anything else in here. Of course, we saw that 1919. That was really, really cool, and that's in good condition. We'll see what else we got here. If it's similar to what we found in the quarters, mostly Queen Elizabeth and a few King George VI, we'll see in just a second. All right, we've sorted through the dimes, stacked them up and sorted them. Very similar story to the quarters. We got lots of stuff here in the 60s, from 60, 61, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No 1967 mackerel, but a big stack of 1968. These are all 50% silver. We can see if I can get that to focus in there, 1968 there. In the 50s, we really only got a couple of King George VI, actually. We got a 1950, and I think this 1946 here. Maybe I'll take it a little closer peek and see, because now I can't remember. 45, apologies. So we got that 45. Otherwise, nothing else except for that George V 1919, which is pretty awesome. But starting with 53, 54, 55, 56, no 57, no 59. Actually, these might all be 59s, no 58s. So, and we got a couple of other extras here, that 1968 non-silver version, and then a 1967 US dime. I suspect that whoever put these in the jar might have thought that the 67s were silver, just like the 1967 Canadians would have been. But they discontinued silver in their dimes in 1964. Of course, that was the last year for silver in the US. So I'm going to do a little tally. We'll find out sort of how much was in here, what all this was. A nice little collection. It's tons of fun going through old quarters, silver quarters, and seeing what there is. Of course, I got to put them back in the jar and give them all back. That's the sad part. But then she can enjoy these, of course, and know a little bit more about what she's got. We didn't find any key dates. We didn't find anything exceptionally rare. But the best find, of course, was this 1919 dime here. And, of course, that King George V quarter. No date on it, but very cool. I'll just come back with a final look at what we ended up getting here. And, of course, we need to take a quick look at that 1973 and see if it is the really rare large bust. When we flip it over, our two tells that this is the common small bust is that there's lots of detail in the hair, and those beads are far from the rim. The large bust would, well, the bust is larger, of course, but the beads are very close to the rim, and there's very little detail in the hair above the crown. So this is the common one, but it's a cool 1973. I'm going to put back in the jar. I'll go over the tally, everything that we found in just a sec. Okay, so I made a tally sheet, and I put it all down on here. I'm going to put this back in the jar with all of our finds. My friend hasn't gone through this. She doesn't really know what all is in there, except that it's a bunch of old quarters and dimes. But we got 77 silver dimes and 82 silver quarters. I put them all back in here. We'll seal them all up, as well as our miscellaneous finds, the non-silver things that were in there. So we'll get this back to her with many thanks. Always fun to look through a jar of treasure. This is stuff that her grandfather and grandmother found and gave to her. And so that's really cool. So she'll probably pass this down as well. So awesome jar of silver. Lots of thanks for letting me go through that. I hope you enjoyed this little look at some treasure. Anytime I get a chance to look through somebody's coins, I love to do that. And, you never know when you're going to find something really interesting and make their day by saying, hey, did you know what was in there? This time was a lot of silver. We didn't find any key dates, but we did find a really cool George V, 1919, and that dateless quarter. Always really, really cool to find really old coins. So that's pretty awesome. A couple of coins that are probably over 100 years old. Well, one definitely, the other one perhaps. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. We'll see you again next time.